This is a project that I'd been wanting to do for a while because, to my surprise, I don't know if it will surprise you, there's very little research has been undertaken on the women's liberation movement in Britain, actually, as a whole. So first of all, you know, all scholars need to address a gap in scholarship. So that was my first intention. And when I'm talking about archives here, I mean stacks of boxes with all sorts of stuff in them, much of which hasn't been looked at since they were deposited, much of which had been languishing in somebody's attic or drawer for decades, and you know, has only ended up in an archive that I can go to and look at because of the innovation and efforts of Women's Archive Wales, actually. But one of the things in the archive is, in these boxes, is there are newsletters. And now, these are ephemera, of course. You know, they weren't intended to have lasted until now. They were produced for a very particular purpose. And you can see, of course, by the quality there of the photographs that I've taken, that, you know, these are tatty, very DIY, they're hand-drawn, very obviously. That's one of the wonderful things about them. They are, you know, they haven't all survived, but as I think you can see just by looking at it, it's an absolute joy and gives us a real insight into what these groups that formed, perhaps I need to say, the women's liberation movement, never a card-carrying, officially subscribed organisation, but a loose network, often of overlapping groups and networks of women. It gives us a wonderful insight that we wouldn't otherwise have.
So women have been boxing since the 1700s. However, it was not until the inclusion of women's boxing at the Olympics, in the London 2012 Olympics, that the sport and its athletes were captured frequently in popular discourse. The inclusion of women's boxing at the London 2012 Olympics legitimised the sport, opening up new discursive possibilities for boxing and its participants, and bringing into focus discourses of gendered exclusion, inequalities, and the politics of difference between sex, gender, and sexuality. So even though boxer, activist, and model Ramla Ali suggests that women make the most creative fighters, for the most part, public narratives and artistic depictions of their work tend to be reductive, sensationalized, and tokenistic. For years, boxing gyms have been active spaces for reporters, writers, artists, and researchers, sourcing material for their work. The characters, relationships, and the drama of the boxing event itself are all really attractive qualities to individuals and companies working in media and as artists. Key to my practice and research is ensuring that I'm working with the boxers themselves rather than seeing their work as an object to be studied. Moreover, the image of bleeding, bruised female boxers are powerful, I argue in my work, as they work in opposition to dominant representations of bloodied and bruised female bodies as victims. So these images of bloodied and bruised female boxers might be shocking, but these women are not in distress. They're powerful athletes competing in their chosen sport.
So in my work with Dr. Charles Hancock at Derby and Dr. Rosie Boardman at Manchester, we have been trying to figure out what is the place of the wedding dress. And the further we got into the project, the more we realised that the wedding dress is an icon, but it's also a little bit of an albatross of a wedding industry problem around sustainability. In terms of an overarching trend, the wedding dress market is changing in a really interesting way at the moment. We, since the pandemic, have seen some real change in consumer behaviour that comes down to cost-based factors, many people looking for a lower cost option, and also factors that involve lower stress options for the bride. So some statistics here for us. The latest available ONS data shows 235,000 marriages in 2018 in England and Wales. We are expecting new data soon, and we expect that to go up in reflecting what's happening right now, but a couple of years of data skewed downwards due to the pandemic and many cancelled and postponed weddings. So we will see an immediate dip that we can't take as an indication that people have just gone off getting married. And we know some other facts that start to create a picture that is not actually a great picture sustainability-wise. So for example, it takes 9,000 litres of water to make one average wedding dress. It takes 400 pounds of rubbish, and a lot of that is textile waste. And we also see 63 tonnes of carbon dioxide being produced per wedding dress. I'm somebody who really needs to picture things like that. So 63 tonnes of carbon dioxide is 18 medium-sized elephants for one wedding dress. And if we think about 200,000 of those marriages would have been a new dress, well, that is 3,600,000 elephants every year for wedding dresses. It is not a great picture for the wedding industry to have such a huge carbon footprint. And that is something that we hope our work will be able to begin to address by making wedding dresses be a more accessible option for brides and a less stigmatized option for brides. We hope we can create a new green trend in the wedding industry.